What's going on, y'all? Ryan Lawrence, Nashville Catch Fishing. Today we're going to do another how-to video. This one's going to be on bumping. So we're going to start out today out here in my kitchen here, and we're going to show you a few different rigs that I use. They're basically the same, just little pieces and parts we add onto your bumping rig. So your basic bumping rig, let's get started with that. So what you have, actually let me show you all the pieces and parts first, what we use. So first off, your main thing, let me grab one out real fast, would be, I use these three-way swivels. They look like this. They're basically two barrel swivels attached together. And how you use these, your main line comes down into your top. Your bottom line with your weight comes and goes down here. And then your free spinning one that's where you want to put your hook line at, right there, off of this one. So we'll get in a little bit more detail with that. The other attachments you can put on there, I always add a little bit of rattle down by the hook. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I do. The other thing, and we'll show you the rig here in a second, we use some chain swivels. That's another thing that a lot of folks use. I don't use them a lot, but I add them in this video because people do. My main line, I always use braid for bumping. You really have the feel with braid. I would not use mono, but I use 65-pound test vicious braid. I like using the yellow just because I can see the line a little bit better. And then your weight line is going to be a 15 to 17 pound, whatever, you go to Walmart and grab something that's off the shelf as your dropper line. You want that at a lower pound test. That way if your weight gets hung, it's really easy to break it off. You're not sitting there fighting for it. And then of course my main line going to my hook, I use 80-pound vicious mono. This is some of the best stuff I've ever used. Too bad they don't make a smaller one, but hey, you can get a long time out of that one. But I think and then the other thing I use, which I'll show you here in a second, is just these little snap swivels here, and I'll show you what I do with them here. All right, so let's talk about the rig. So that was all the pieces and parts, and you're going to see them all right here. So get all untangled here. All right. So this is, I ain't going to be able to show it all because it's probably too long to hang. But, so here, this would attach to your main line. That goes up. This is the one that swivels, which goes to my hook, which I just use, mono leader going to a Daiichi hook with a bead on. That's all this is. Now, my leader line here is, roughly 2.5, 3 foot. That can change no matter what kind of body of water you're in, what situation, where the fish are. This is just a basic rig I have. And then on the bottom of this, your 15-pound weight drop down to a cannonball sinker. I like to use cannonball sinkers the best. I know some people use bank sinkers, but hey, whatever works best for you. But this is where I use that snap. See, I use that snap on the bottom of that. That way, if I need to change weight sizes real fast, say I'm going with a 3-ounce weight and it's walking back so far I can't keep control of it, I can easily reel it in, snap this off, put a 4-ounce on it, and I'm good to go. So here, this is basically your basic bumping rig. Now, there's a few things you can add to them. Some guys, where your hook is, here's your hook, we'll add these chain swivels. That way, they spin a little bit more when they're in the water, especially like on the Mississippi River. They'll spin and it might not tangle as much. That's one attachment you can add. The other one people will add on to it is just some kind of rattle float, a spook of any sort, whatever brand you guys use. That's no big deal. They just put that down there to get a little bit of rattle going on so the fish can hear it a little bit better. The other thing, instead of using that, just use a regular float. Now, the only time I use floats and stuff like that would be a little bit less current situation. So if I'm on the Mississippi and there's a lot of current, it's going to walk. Your stuff's going to walk out. You're talking 3-4 mile an hour current. It's going to walk out pretty good. But if you're at home and doing a little bumping, and it's like 1 mile an hour, 2 mile an hour, I'll sometimes put a spook on, stuff like that. My river to Cumberland, I'll be known to use floats and stuff like that just because I'm trying to keep the bait up a little bit more if there's not as much current to help keep it, push it back. Things like that. You got the wind pushing against you, making stuff a little bit harder, adding a float and stuff like that will really help. But this is basically just It's a little video on how my rig's sitting here in the house. If you guys have any questions on that or something I went over too fast, just please drop them in a comment and I'll definitely get back with you. But let's head out on the water and show you how all this stuff works out there. All right, guys, so when we're bumping, the main thing, let me see, it's all on your personal choice on the trolling motor. So I usually run mine, some people say half the amount of current, but I usually put my trolling motor on 4.5. That way it's always manageable, and I just keep it at 4.5 no matter how this current, you see the current still going. There goes a stick by me right now. You can see the current still moving pretty good on 4.5. So then you just kind of choose your weight of choice. So I put it down there. We're only fishing roughly 30 foot of water through here, but I got a 3 ounce on. So if you put this down there and you can't keep the bottom, change weights out. Change up to a 4. You might have to go to a 5, especially if you're new. I'd rather, if you're a new person to bumping, use a heavier weight so you have a little bit more control. But if you get a too heavy weight and it's right underneath the boat and you're just bouncing underneath the boat, drop down a size. Try to go back down to, maybe if you're using a 4, go down to a 3 and see if you can walk it back. So when you go to put it out, I just kind of let it and drop it in the current. And then you got to keep your finger on your thumb so it goes down slowly so you can feel that initial hit of the bottom. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is feel that initial hit. It just hit the bottom. So once you feel that, it'll just slowly start walking back on you, and you just, as it's walking back, just you always want to keep, I always keep my reel unengaged most of the time. So I can just let the line walk back, but you want to keep your thumb on there and keep pressure, because if a fish hits it, you got to have that pressure to, set the hook on them. And then you just keep on going back. And there'll be times where the underneath current slows down, speeds up, and you might have to reel a little bit in, reel some out. It just takes a little bit of practice, especially out here on the Mississippi, because the current's moving. If you guys fish, Ohio River, Cumberland River, Tennessee River, and there's a little bit of current, it's a little bit more manageable and running about the same at everywhere, so it's easier to learn if you're learning. Out here is a little bit harder. But just give me a second. I need to adjust the trolling motor. All right, so we're just, like right now, I got to reel in a little bit of line because it's going back, but basically, when you're bumping, you just want to feel the bottom and lift up a little bit. You do not want to take it, and you see how high, you don't want to do that, because the higher you lift that rod, the more you're going to take that weight off the bottom. And then the problem is then the weight scoots out and it's harder to find the bottom. So you just want little pops. I got to find the bottom again after I did that. All right, so there's the bottom. So you just really want to move your rod tip, I'm going to say 6 inches. Not very much. Just keep on bumping. And then, as it's working back, like now it's cruising back there, so I got to keep letting out some line. And you just want to lift it up and just keep on doing it. So it can be frustrating when you start, that's for sure, but it is an awesome way to catch a fish. So when you have a big old fish hit it, it's a one-of-a-kind feeling. That's for dang sure. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, don't be afraid to put it in the bottom, and I'll try to answer if I left anything out. I can't think of anything I did right now. It just takes time on the water, that's for sure. So, as I said, try to do it in lower current situations. Out here, Mississippi, it's a little harder to learn on, but if you have another area you can learn on. Or out here and find shallower water. And I would recommend not trying to learn how to bump in deep water. I would probably stay 30 foot and above just to help learn, so like I said, any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll try to help out as much as I can, and if I get enough questions, I'll put another video out on it. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope this helped.